me back. I will talk about, okay, so I did not put the pay application on this little presentation, but I can talk about that a little bit first. If you prefer, if that works. Or the pay estimate from Fergie, or do you want to wait until after this?
However you want to do it.
Okay. Let's wait till after. Let's wrap up that, since I have this open already. All right, so with the landscaping plan, we wanted to try to mimic like wetland conditions as best as possible, since this is a stormwater wetland. And so here's some of the recommendations we have from just the agencies, the design criteria. And so we have an open water aquatic beds, a lot of the underwater plants, and we have this shallow emergent kind of right on that water's edge. And then we have kind of the upland soils or upland plants, which include shrubs and trees, and kind of a meadow planting area. So with the cost, we try to minimize the complexity of things, so we try to just simplify it. So we have an emergent zone, which is just at the water level, a little bit above, a little bit below. And then we have the mesic parade, which is just the seating on the upland area, so the non-wet area. And then also to further reduce costs, we took out a lot of the trees and shrubs, the plantings, thinking that, as budget allows in the future, those can always be added in the future. They aren't necessary to stabilize the site. So here's kind of some pictures of what it could look like, what we're hoping it will look like. This includes native vegetation, some of the flowers you can kind of see at the bottom, and then just some of the grasses and just water aquatic plants kind of in that picture to the right. So this is the hope. This is what we're hoping it will look like in the end. All right, so this is obviously a plan sheet. So we have our reduced water area from the original plan, and we have it seeded throughout the whole site, everything pretty much within the maintenance access road. And so we have the outer shape is the mesic prairie, so kind of that drier upland planting, so the seeding there. And then we have this emergent zone, which is kind of right on the water's edge. So those two shapes are up there. And with those, we just have a diverse, not a diverse mix, but basic MnDOT seed mixes. And then the emergent is, since it's more of a wetland, kind of a specialized mix, we have a Minnesota native landscape mix called out there. And then with that, we have stabilization. So with any project, you have to stabilize the soils. And so we show here areas of blanket, erosion control blanket, in the kind of the checkered boxes, and then the diagonal is just a mulch type 3, so basically the straw mulch that you see. We added the blanket basically because of the erosion factor. So this will all be topsoil. Everything that's planted will be topsoil. So we'll have it is topsoil right now. It has 6 inches of topsoil, and so basically as kind of another stabilization factor to reduce any future erosion, we added the erosion control blanket. And that is one of the biggest costs on the project, so that comes to about $49,000 is the estimate. And again, we're using MnDOT average bid prices for a cost estimate there. Or I think, Tyler, did we use some of the bids from Fergie as well?
Yeah, combination.
Combination, okay. So that's a majority of the cost, is this erosion control blanket. And really it's just a stabilization measure. I mean, we looked at hydromulch as well, which is some of the green stuff that you see out there right now. It's a little bit more expensive than blanket, so we went with the cheaper option. But with just the conditions and the things that we've been seeing this summer, we decided to go with blanket to basically stabilize it a little bit more, have that longevity for stabilization as well. So it will last much longer than the other, it's supposed to last a couple years. So getting that stabilization before the plants can fully stabilize. So it will take about 3 years for the native plants to be in full swing, essentially. So the first year we'll have some cover crop, and we'll get some of the natives up. The second year will be better. The third year will be even better. So with the native planting, it does take a little bit of patience. So just want to kind of run through some things. Landscaping was included in the original construction plan. With the 60%, we included more water, less native planted area. So just wanted to talk through some of the changes since since the beginning essentially, because I know there's been a lot of cost questions come up, and so I just want to kind of address those. So when the SWCD funds became available for landscaping, we pulled those out of the original plan set, or would be the 90% plan set, and basically said, okay, they are offering $50,000, so we took them out at that time to reduce the cost, the construction costs as well. And then, so the funds are $50,000 is what the SWCD has committed for funds, plus a 50% city match. And then if approved by the city council here, we will obtain quotes from contractors in January. I think that's all I have for the landscaping. So I will take questions on that before I move on to the other stuff. All right, so activities completed to date. We have everything excavated, stabilized, the contractor is done for the season. So here is a look at the stormwater wetland. So you see that kind of little meander there through there. We have all the pipes and structures, all the topsoils in, the riprap's in, the concrete forebays in, the site is stabilized. We have maintenance access road in, just a class 5 base for the maintenance access road. They have to come back and pave it in the spring. So, and then we did repair that berm washout during the rain event. And then here's what it kind of looks like underneath the water. So we hit up the site earlier this evening, and everything's full and frozen. So that's great. It's at the right level, so that's perfect. But here's some of the just a picture from the construction when everything was pumped down. So in the spring we need to do the asphalt paving, landscaping, and then just finishing up that site restoration around the edges. All right, any questions, thoughts on that? We move to the budget. I know this is the most exciting part. All right, so overall project budget, we received Bowser Clean Water Funds for $830,000, and then the total grant amount was for $890,000, and $60,000 went to the SWCD for the grant administration, and they gave $43,000 back to the city because they just didn't use it, and so we were able to get those funds as well. So total grant funds were $873,000, and then the landscaping grant from SWC is $50,000. And in the grant application, the city of Baxter's required match was $300,000. And so the total plan budget, this excludes the design road work, was $1.223 million. All right, so I'll go through the cost breakdown here. So easements, we have permanent easement, and Trevor, you might have to remind me what that is for. We were trying to identify that one, and I couldn't find I think that was a number provided by you guys, so we'll maybe skip past that one. But Becca had an easement on the very eastern side of the trail where it connects to Collins? Cypress, I know it's C. All right, Cypress Drive, and then the design road easement on the west side where the pipe comes from design road. And so total easement costs were over $10,000. And then engineering fees, the initial design and construction administration contract was $343,399 for us. And then with the additional items, the separate landscaping plan, the additional construction admin for the construction schedule, moving to spring. I think originally when it was contracted in 2020, we were assuming everything was going to be constructed in one season. And then we added bronze costs for concrete and materials testing, and we had some easement preparation for some of the pedestrian easement. Some of the additional change orders, I think we only had 2 change orders scoped in our original contract. And so that total requested was $88,570. And so that brings our total engineering estimate, or engineering fees, to $431,969. All right, and then construction estimates. So I wanted to kind of break these out a little bit to kind of talk a little bit about the history. And so the 60%, our engineering estimate was $1.275, and that included the landscaping. I think there was about maybe $40,000 of landscaping costs in there. it at 60%. And then the 90%, we took out the landscaping, and it brought it down to a little over $1 million, and that, I think we also adjusted some of the estimated excavation costs as well, just getting some additional information from the city staff. And then the 100% OPC was 1.05 roughly, and that again was without landscaping. And so the low bid came in at the 959,000. Okay, so then the change orders. So our change order one, the first one we did, it reduced the excavation quantity. Again, to try to cut costs there. We also designed or upsized the design road pipe to accommodate the future MnDOT project. So it was a net decrease of 49,000. And so the total then for G contract was 909. And then change order two. So we extended the access road for the future BMP expansion from MnDOT. So we basically took that bottom southwest corner and kind of rounded it out to fit the property line, essentially. So then that would accommodate any sort of expansion from the future MnDOT project. We added reinforcement to the concrete access, and then added seeding and mulching to stabilize the site over winter until the permanent seeding would happen in the spring. So, and then that was an addition of 49,190. All right, any questions on those two? Okay. All right, so change order three. This one, we upgraded the aggregate base material under the concrete due to the unstable soils created by the high groundwater levels. Added riprap around the forebay and at the outlets and inlets. Rerouted the concrete access for operations and maintenance activities. So instead of having the concrete road, the access road going to the second pretreatment basin, we routed down the berm so it could access both basins from a single entry point. And then we removed the extended pipes. So there was some pipes that were extended and we removed those. So total was 75,000 for that one, which brought the G contract up to 1 million, a little over $1 million. And then change order for this last one. So repaired that berm washout and then added riprap above the forebay and over the berm. And that was a total of 107,000, which brings the total up to 1.14 million. And then I know we talked a little bit about the Utilities Commission meeting about a potential change order 5, which we'll talk about a little bit. I don't have, nothing's been set in stone for that at all. I do have a few comments on that, but we'll talk about that in a second. So that would be for a potential bank stabilization in the pretreatment basin. So in the second basin, there's some sloughing while the contractor pumped down the water to do the repair for the berm washout. And so some of the side slopes started kind of sloughing in. And I believe one portion of that area has been repaired already by G. And so this potential change order could include basically stabilizing the entire bank of that. So either adding riprap or adding some sort of armoring to that whole thing to prevent slumping in the future from a drawdown event. So if there's anything that needs to be done, so maintenance, to draw that down. And so the overall project cost, so our total planned budget was 1.2. The total costs to date are over 1.5, around 1.5, with the engineering, the construction, the easements, and then we subtracted out the design road costs because they are included in your budget. And so the overage is 274, and I listed out potential future costs, which would be the landscaping, which our engineer's estimate is 123, and then change order 5. We're still working on costs for that, but anywhere from 200. So those two together could be anywhere from 200 to 325,000. So at this point, I had some conversations with Ron today on just recommendations as far as stabilizing those soils. Do they need to be stabilizing, or sorry, the slopes? Do they need to be stabilized? Can we wait? Do we have to do this all at once? The recommendation that we would tentatively give right now is let's wait on stabilizing that with riprap. Let's get the landscaping done. Let's stabilize the soils permanently. And maybe on this landscaping contract, we can basically have the contractor clean up the side slopes a little bit while the water is drawn down a little. wait until the basin needs to maintain, and so we actually have to pump it down to add riprap at that point if needed. And so I'm recommending that we don't riprap anything at this point, and we wait and see how the basin performs, and address it at a later date. This would allow the city to budget more for it. You would know that those costs are coming, you know, and we also looked at frequency of maintenance a little bit. And again, we don't have anything formalized in a memo at this point yet, but, you know, looking at the frequency of maintenance. So we're thinking, so per year, per the water quality models that we have, we're expecting to get about a foot of sediment per year in that forebay, just the concrete forebay. And so the frequency of maintenance for that would be potentially every 2 years. The bigger basin, we're looking at potentially 3 to 5 years, maybe even more. And I think it'll just depend on the weather, how often it rains, what's that. So if we wait 5 years or 3 to 5 years and pump it down to do the maintenance, at that point, we could look at riprapping it or doing something more permanent there. So. I think that's all I have. All right, what kind of questions do you have?
So at the utilities meeting, we talked about all this, and we were talking about pumping it down twice a year.
And that was before we checked the numbers, so you'd asked
That's
to.
before what?
That was before we checked the numbers. You had asked us to come back with a pumping or operations maintenance or an expected frequency of oh my gosh, can't talk. Expected frequency of maintenance, and so we checked into that. So that's what I wanted to bring back to you today.
So is Ron pretty confident that these side slopes aren't gonna slough in while it's full of water?
After my conversations with him today, yes. So he will be finalizing a report that I'll be sending on. But at this point, it's a draft report, and I wanted to get more feedback before I have him finalize anything. But yeah, in discussions with him today, he said yes. And he also offered me to give you his contact information if you wanted to call him. So.
I would just like, you know, a lot of numbers flowing at us very quickly here tonight.
Sorry, yeah.
And so what I would like, and this has been a moving target. So what I'd like to hear from staff, what do these numbers mean? Are we low or are we high? When I see a shortage of 270, are these numbers unexpected to us, or was this always part of the, just bring it down to us here more or less here?
How do we go back in here?
I think it's 22% over, right?
You go back to the 270. Yeah, the original planned budget was the 1.223 million, which is after we opened up the bids, right? This is what we were expecting to be at.
That was the original grant funding.
That was the original grant funding.
The available grant funds plus the $300,000 city match. That's the total.
Correct. So then you go back to the change orders. We anticipated on change order number 1, what was our budget after change order number 1 with everything? 909 plus the engineering fees,
Yeah.
which put us at what? Do you? Because that's really what they're asking is when they approved this project to go ahead with it, we had an increase at that time. And I recall it was just a little over $100,000, assuming that $50,000 grant from the SWCD was going to cover the plantings in 2024. And what's happening here is change order number 2 come up, change order number 3 now has come up, and you start adding this up, where do we sit? So what was the actual budget that you guys were supposed to follow after change order number 1? What was that dollar amount?
That would be
1.25 compared to the 1.22, so we were only over budget by about $25,000, okay? When the city council awarded the contract, we figured we were going over budget by 25,000. Then, we get to the change order number 2, and now we had to amend the budget another 50,000 because of changes on the site.
Aren't those two kind of a wash? Or am I not?
Well, even though it was a reduction in the contract of 49,000, it wasn't a reduction in the budget. We're talking contract bid with J.R. Furchie, but then we're talking total budget of the total project, which is every single cost from A to Z in it. It's not just J.R. Furchie's contract. So don't look at those numbers.
It's the engineering fees and all the other fees and costs.
When you approved change order number 1, you also approved a budget amendment of $25,000 to go to 2.25 million. That's the best way to look at this. Don't look at the 49,000. Your new budget number that you approved and increased the money coming, another $25,000 coming out of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund was $25,000. Now we get to change order number 2. What we'll do is, what we need to do is put a timeline together. When was each of these change orders approved by the city council? And show what the budget increase was on each one. That's what they're asking. Because on change order number 2, now we went to being $75,000 over budget of the original budget. Then you get to change order 3. Now put us another $75,000. So now we're $150,000 over budget. Now tonight, we're asking for change order number 4, which now has a budget amendment of an additional $107,000. So now we're pushing $185,000, $183,000 over budget, getting close to $200,000. But the landscaping is estimated at $123,000, which is another $75,000 over budget. But it's engineer's estimate, it's not a bid price. So going with finishing up the landscaping and the plantings is gonna push us to over $350,000 over budget potentially. And then with the minor adjustments and engineering fees and stuff, pushed us to $400,000 over budget. There was an engineering amendment in between one of the change orders here that pushed us to about $400,000 over budget. Then you take a possible change order number 5 of another $200,000, puts us close to $600,000 over budget, over the original budget, is the potential. And it's just astronomically growing very fast. Hope that answered your question, Daryl.
Now, so are we done with 5, or will it be a 6?
No,
Only 5 words.
5 is, change order 5 is not on the table.
Right.
We're not set on exactly what the rate fix is and when to fix it. Exactly what you asked, Mark, is it going to hold a well underwater, which is my concern. I want to see in the spring what that silt fence looks like around the perimeter. If it goes up and down like a roller coaster, that means the ground underneath has been sliding into that pond, into that forebay. That's what I'm worried about, is that even with the water pressure against it, it's going to slide. We know for a fact that when you drain the water down to the bottom of that forebay, it slides in. Groundwater just pushes that plasticized sand right into the forebay. But right now, they believe, and and Braun believes that with the water pressure in the forebay, that it's holding it back, that it is not moving. I'm not totally convinced of that until it goes through a few ones, it goes through a freeze-thaw cycle. Because what worries me right now is that the ground is froze a certain distance in, and that's really what's holding it, not just the water pressure. But we will see in the spring when it thaws completely out. By June 1st, we're gonna know if it's slid more in. It's gonna be very obvious all the way around that bay. For sure, we know that when we have to do maintenance on that sand forebay, that we will have the sliding in. So what they're suggesting as one possible solution is to armor that slope when we have to do the first maintenance of that forebay. The first forebay, that sand forebay, they have estimated that will not have to be cleaned for 3 to 5 years. The concrete forebay is completely armored. That's what the one change order is. We put riprap all the way up to the top of the pipes, of the inlet pipes, all the way over the berm between the two forebays, in order to make sure there is no erosion and no sloughing or sliding of the side slopes. That one has to be cleaned, they're estimating every 2 years. Because you only want it to get about 50% full, and then you want to clean it. It's 50% full when it gets to be about 2.5 feet deep of sediment at the bottom. Right now, tonight, you're being asked with change order number 4 to approve that and the landscaping plan, which is estimated at $123,000 in construction. We would be $400,000 over the original budget of the $1.225 million. And we had anticipated being with the budgets, and Jeremy's not in here, with the budgets, with the stormwater enterprise budget, we had anticipated the $200,000. In your budgets that were approved for 2024 by City Council, had it in there that we were gonna have about $200,000 in overruns, not $400,000. And then, to fix the very last problem, maybe another $200,000. I think we gotta go through with bidding the landscaping to see what the true cost is, because the problem is out there, we have to stabilize it with something. Right now, it's just temporary seeded. We have to put a permanent seed of some sort down. I don't know if we can get by with just hydro spraying it, but right now the hydro spray is coming in higher than the actual wood fiber blanket. So I think we gotta bid it and see where it comes in, and then at that discussion of awarding, we've gotta have I think they need to put this whole timetable together, exactly when the budget was increased at each stage, and then we'd be asking for another budget amendment at that stage for that landscape. I don't know for sure what to do about the overruns. And then we still have the outstanding issue of that sand forebay to fix.
Brad, any thoughts?
No, obviously, this is a very fortunate situation. I do want council to know is all the files, documents, contracts, communication have been shared with our legal counsel to look at and make sure that our rights are protected, depending on which direction this goes.
So, if I'm hearing you right, then we are next up, legal. Now you can just nod your head from there. We'll hear it.
I think change order number 4 on the council agenda needs to be approved because the work has been done by the contractor. And we have to increase the budget by that dollar amount, that 100 and something thousand, I think it is. It's in the motion to increase the budget by that 120,000 maybe. Brad's looking at there. I think you have to do it, we had to do that emergency fix, we had to fix the berm. The question is what was the cause of that berm giving out, which is what we're looking into. And then the landscaping, I think you've got to go ahead and bid it because we have to get a permanent seed out there. I don't know when it comes time to award. If it comes in higher than the estimate, there's definitely going to be a lot of discussion. If it would happen to come in way low, that would be great because we have 50,000 of that 123 from the SWCD. It's only 75,000 is city cost. So anything that comes down from that engineer's estimate would help the city. The SWCD is at 50,000 no matter what the project comes in at. They're willing to put $50,000 towards landscape.
It's item 21 on the agenda, and it's to approve change order number 4 and to adjust the budget by an additional 180,000.
180,000.
Council, any comments or?
Not specific to the budget issue here, but do we have an estimate of what it's gonna cost for the is it every other year or every 3 to 4 years to drain and clean the basements?
No, we will not put together an estimate. Well, I was really hoping that we could do it with our city forces. We have a trash pump to pump it down. Go out there and set it up, pump it down, take our equipment, go down and take the sand, the sediment out of the bottom of the floor bay, bring it up and let it dry in the drying pad, and then probably hire somebody to haul it then out to a landfill or a construction landfill. So that's what I'm hoping, because you gotta get it up on top, get it dry, test it to see what contaminants are in it, and find out whether you have to take it to which type of landfill.
Thanks.
I guess I just maybe saying something out loud that is already understood by everybody, but, so $107,000 is already spent, so whether we approve it or not isn't really all that relevant.
Correct.
We can start a fight, but, okay. That's, I just wanted to like say that out loud, but, the other thing about the, not having been on the ground and just reading the consent agenda background on it, and it sounds like we're talking to lawyers, but the way it's put is so very polite that I guess I was a little confused about, like, do we not have anything in our contracts that would protect us from a standard rainstorm when it comes to, like, if somebody's building a house for me and a normal July rainstorm comes through and it wrecks something interior while the project's being done, I wouldn't expect them to say, oh, and now you're gonna pay twice for this work because it rained. So I'm just a little curious as to the long term, and I know there's standard practices with contracting, but it seemed a little odd to me the way it's put that, oh, it rained, so something had to be redone, so now we're paying for it. When, I don't know, it confused me.
Great question. I was thinking the same thing we're talking about. That does it not come warranted, or maybe sure isn't the right word, but I think warranty.
To the point where the project's done and it's our responsibility now, rather than
We have 2 different sets of contracts here. We have a contract between the city and the contractor, and then we have a contract between the engineering firm and the city. The contractor contract with the city is acts of God are not the responsibility of the contractor. Yes, yes, the city ends up paying for that cleanup. That's just part of doing business on the construction projects. You go out on Cypress Drive, we paid about $100,000 out there to fix the washouts and stuff. The question comes up is was it designed correctly to handle that event? So you gotta look at, then you look at the engineering contracts between the city and the engineering firm to find out, was there something that wasn't designed correctly?
What's the act of God here?
Act of God was the rain event happened and it washed the berm out between the concrete forebay and the sand forebay, which required this emergency fix of adding riprap. It was never designed to have riprap over the entire berm, only on the concrete forebay side.
So a normal summer rainstorm is considered an act of God? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. You can't control Mother Nature when it rains.
Okay. Our attorney's looking at that, correct?
Yeah, and again, I would just reiterate what Public Works Director Walter had indicated, and that's where we're trying to find out, no pun intended, we're grafting through the sand to figure out what happened, or what is happening.
And find out what if any recourse there is.
In Minnesota, then Tuesday is an act of God.
Right. I think I thought there's like every,
So many inches or something.
or, like number of years,
Inches.
100-year storm.
There's a lot of factors to look at that we will be looking at, Jeff. That's all I can say.
Oh, it's Zach, not me.
I'll take that. You look into it and blame it on me.
Contractor didn't cause the rain event, but did the rain event cause the washout of the berm?
Well, the contractor didn't cause the rain event, but a rain event is to be expected by the contractor, right?
When the project was completed, the question is, was it completed and stabilized properly? There's a lot of factors that have to be looked at. Right now, it had to be fixed. We have to pay the contractor to fix it.
Yep, agreed.
All right, how do we move on?
Mailbox.
Well, on this one here, we're gonna wait till you're gonna do some bidding.
If you approve going ahead with approving the plans and then bidding the vegetation, we're pretty much all we're doing is seeding, getting it seeding and stabilized out there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Briefly want to go
We're gonna
over,
really go mailbox words here.
did we go over the pay estimate?
This really quick. All right, so GR4T submitted a pay estimate at the very last minute to get on the Utilities Commission packet. And it was not vetted by us, it was not approved by us, so we could not forward it to the Utilities Commission. We have been working with them since to resolve the excess and the errors in their submitted pay request, and so we've resolved those, and so now we are forwarding that for approval for council for a pay estimate.
So should that be submitted to the Utilities Commission for the next meeting?
And it can't in order to meet the contract deadline. We have, once it's submitted to the city for payment, we have to pay within 30 days. And that's what's the problem, is I can't turn around, take it to Utilities Commission and then pay it at the second council meeting in January. That's why it's on your agenda for approval tonight.
But it will be an informational item on January.
We'll have it as an informational item that it got paid and why on the Utilities
When's the
Commission.
30 days up?
Do you know exactly what day it was submitted and when the 30 days was up?
Thursday of last week. I don't know when the 30 days is.
It was submitted before that. The deadline was back in
They submitted,
November.
yeah, they submitted incorrect overages that they have since corrected. They didn't correct it until last Thursday.
So do you go off the correct pay estimate or the first pay estimate they submitted?
let's, due to time, I apologize, the mailbox conversation will push to the,
I don't think that it needs to be a rushed issue. It's just,
but we'll push it to the January.
January workshop?
yeah, that's fine. It was just,